And man, like you said, I got tooled beyond comprehension when I first started wrestling. But then I went undefeated my senior year and went on to represent Canada, which is where I grew up. And then I got married and found my beautiful bride, and we now have got 5 kids. Just celebrated 20 years of marriage. But back in the day, she was into running, and she was like, "Hey, let's go do this 4-mile fun run." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Nobody says fun." And have you ever seen a runner like going down the road smiling? No, it's impossible. Like, stop talking. And she was like, "Just come do it. It'll be fun." I'm like, "It's Thanksgiving." I'm like, "Okay, I'll be the good husband. I'll go support my wife." And dude, I distinctly remember, like, I'm like, my heart's pounding, my lungs feel like they're going to explode. And I look over, and these beautiful women just pushing their kids in strollers, laughing and talking, just blowing by me. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Like, I'm a physical specimen. Like, what is going on that this is happening in my life right now? And so it allowed me to sit back and do kind of like a mini audit on where I was physically in my life. And I had some situational depression, and I was a new father of these 2 beautiful girls, and I just was like trying to figure out my place. And Sunny comes up to me. It was Thanksgiving, looks right at me, and she's like, "Dude, you are pathetic." And I was just like, "Whoa, what are we talking about here?" And she's like, I just signed you up for the Salt Lake City Marathon. Figure it out." And I was like, "A marathon?" I'm like, "What's that? How far are we talking here?" And she's like, "Well, it's 26.2 miles, and it's in 4 months." and I just, like, it just rocked me, and I went and did the marathon, and I actually hated it. Funny story, the MMA fights were in town. I'm a huge MMA fan. They were in town that night, and I went to the stadium in Salt Lake City, and I sat down in my chair, and I'm like, I'm pissed. I had this terrible marathon experience. I'm just going to sit here and watch the show. Well, 4 hours go by, and I go to stand up to go home, and I can't.
What?
And I looked down, and my knees had swollen up to the size of cantaloupes, and I could not stand up out of my chair. And so now picture the machoest of environments.
Yeah.
And I have to get wheelchaired out of the studio to my car and eat just the big, like the entire humble pie. I had to eat the whole thing, not a piece, the whole thing. And I got home, and I was just like, F running and endurance sports. Like, this is so stupid. I'm like, I'm a wrestler. I'm a fighter. I'm a guy that goes to the weight room and does the weights. I don't care. Crazy. And I woke up the next morning, and I went, I can do that better.
Did you really?
And I said, I am not going to allow that moment to define who I am. And then over time I learned, because you hear all the time, I don't run, I've got bad knees. And I was that guy. I was like, I've got bad knees. It's obvious. I got bad knees. It must have been from all the wrestling. I'm not a runner. And then I learned, over educating myself and whatnot, I don't have bad knees because of running. I have bad knees because I don't run.
Right.
And I started to go down this journey of endurance, and I found the love for cycling, and I got into the Tour de France and watching it. And I had a friend that did sprint triathlon, which is the short version, and I just fell in love. I had to teach myself how to swim and buy a bike, and I just fell in love with the diversity of training, and I didn't look like everybody else, right? Like, I carry more muscle.
Right.
And I remember early on, I went to Ironman Arizona, and I was spectating, and I have no idea what his name is, but I watched the 4th place professional, he was either 4th or 3rd, come across the line. And this dude looked like you. I mean, he was yoked, and I was like, okay, you can look like an athlete and still have success in this game. And so then I just because my passion is truly like lifting, and that's where I started in wrestling and fighting and all that. And so when I saw that dude, I was like, okay, I might be able to be successful in this sport. And I just fell in love with the diversity of it and the training. And then what I learned was a lot of this is mental. And going back to my roots was triathlon. I mean, was wrestling. And again, if I win or I lose, it's my fault. And I loved that. And so I just started to implement the mental side of stuff and the nutrition side of stuff. And it just became this like big challenge for me. And over time, it just escalated. And I would try one thing, and I'd gain experience. And totally long story, but we lost everything in the economy. I used to own a mortgage company, and all of these things happened. And I remember doing my first Ironman triathlon, and um, I just fell in love with it. And it was hard to have the perfect race. And again, it was like, I can do better. I can do better. I can do better. And you just keep going back to the drawing board, trying to do better. And I started working for a charity, and it was a charity in Africa. And we ended up breaking the world record for the most half Ironmans done in a year. And it was so cool because it was the hardest thing I could think of. It totally pushed me physically and mentally. And as you know, the number one question that a lot of people get, that a lot of people ask or want to know in today's day and age is like, how do I become more mentally tough? It's like, and I'm like, well, you have to show up. And it's only through experience that you can become more mentally tough. And what I've experienced over my career is like, when you set a goal, it should be the most intimidating, scary, but exciting goal that you've ever set for yourself. And as you work towards it, and then when you're in the middle of it, you say to yourself, this is the hardest thing I have ever done. And then you accomplish it, and you're like, yes, I did that. And now I have knowledge and experience. And you look back at what was the hardest thing, and you say, I can do better.
Yeah.
And now you've gained confidence and knowledge because you decided to show up and not quit. And only then can you now conceptualize the next big goal. Because I didn't wake up and just go, you know what? Life is hard and I don't have much experience, but I'm going to go do Conquer 100. Right? You don't go from there to there. And if you do, I guarantee you're going to fail.
Right.
Because one, you don't respect the goal, and you haven't endured the process to where you gain knowledge and experience. And so that half Ironman led me to the full Ironman world record, that led me to the consecutive, to where I then believed that I was capable physically and mentally to do a quarter of a year of 100 consecutive full distance tries, which is
unreal
sports endurance history.
I want to unpack that for a minute. So I want everyone to catch this, because you've got a dream, maybe you want, or maybe you're sitting here going, look, I don't know what my big thing is yet. Why don't you just unpack two things there? Because he said them, in one bunch. One, this is a guy who struggles through his first 4 mile deal, right? Gets wheeled out of the damn arena, right? Which is incredible. Like, that's after the first big one you did. Then to think that this came on the heels of catastrophe in your life, which was your mortgage business failing, right? I mean, I want everyone to understand this. Through one of the most difficult times in this man's life was really born this new adventure / challenge in his life. This did not come like in, spring season of his life. It came in winter time. And can you go back that just for a minute? I mean, did this give you some kind of like a release? Like, hey, this is something maybe I can prove myself in again? Like you said, I loved it. Did you love the actual sweating and you're gassed by the end of it, or did you love the challenge of the whole thing because you had kind of had this business setback?
Yeah, I love the challenge of the whole thing. And I want to congratulate anybody right now that is at rock bottom. Because if you choose to get up and fight, your life is going to be so spectacular. And to me, the best place that I could have ever been was rock bottom, because it gave me an opportunity to claw back and fight and take back what was mine and prove who I was. And so I just want to look, if you're struggling right now and you feel like there's no way out, you're exactly where you need to be. And if you can wake up and say, look, I'm just going to win today. And you don't got to get all the way there, but if you just show up and have intent with what you're doing, dude, I'm so excited for you, because that's where I was. And I'm telling you, I'm living the life of my dreams right now. And I have the relationship of my dreams. I've got 5 kids of my dreams, and none of it would have happened without the lessons and the destruction and everything that I experienced. And so I just want to congratulate anybody listening that if you're in the thick of it and you feel like there's no way out, congratulations, because if you choose to show up with intent every single day, you're going to take your life back, and you can, because I did, and I'm nobody.
That's awesome. Bro, that's one of those that just sit and want to base in that for a minute. It made me think, by the way, you could tell he's obviously one of the best speakers in the country too. And his book, Redefine Impossible, The Iron Cowboy, Redefine Impossible, it's really what you did. You redefined what was possible too, right? But I've sat at those Ironmans because I lived in Coeur d'Alene. So I've sat at an actual Ironman, one of the trademark ones. And I don't go to watch the pros finish. I like to go at nighttime. It's usually raining and you're watching a 82-year-old priest finish right before the end of the night, right? Or a guy with a prosthetic leg, or a lady who's just survived stage 4 cancer. And what happens to you when you watch something like that, and then what you've done is some level that's just beyond comprehension almost, is that I weep and everyone's crying. And I after about 6 years of doing this, my kids are like, Dad cries once a year, you know. It's watching these beautiful souls make something that seemed impossible possible. And I concluded that we're all crying because we know this courage, this mental toughness, this incredible thing these people are displaying, we also have inside us and we're not utilizing. And that's why it's a tear. It's not laughter, it's a tear, because I know it's tears of joy, but it's also tears of personal reflection. And when I was watching you finish this thing, I was reflecting. It's amazing you're listening to some of my stuff, but I was reflecting. I just literally lost my breath saying, I was reflecting, like, what am I capable of? You know, what's the last massive challenge I've taken on in my life? And I'm curious for you. I want to go through it because I think there's metaphors everywhere. So by the way, the reason I started with 30 and 50 is he's done that. And then when you did the 50 and 50, I'm like, bro, you're out of your damn mind, right? And then to go do the Conquer 100. But I'm reading about both of those last two. It's inspiring, right? But this time, like day 5, your shins start exploding, right? Like you're on day 5. Talk us through that. Did you think of quitting then?
So 2 really cool things happened that took me a little bit of time to realize. I went into it knowing that you can't train for 100 consecutive. You have to adapt and evolve along the way. And I knew, look, the first 15 and 20 of these are going to be hell, because you've got to get to the point where you're broken physically and mentally, and then push through that. And that's where everybody quits. And if I can push through that, my body's going to adapt and evolve, and it's going to become the new normal.
And that, everybody, I want you to write this down. Pull over, adapt and evolve. That's in your business. That's in your family. That's in your fitness. That's the key. Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, and so when I went into it with an ankle problem that I didn't tell anybody about, and it immediately exploded into my shin, to where we developed a stress fracture in the bone. And super long story, but a miracle happened. We ended up getting a carbon-plated shin brace that allowed us to offload the shin and continue on to heal that stress fracture by doing the marathon portion every single day. It was a total miracle, but a complete testament to me that you give the body the tools and assets that it needs to recover. It can still do so under stress. And that was amazing to me to watch the body heal like that. Now, the shin and the imbalance that created a hip problem became so painful. Some of my worst days, I don't remember them, but we have the video footage where I would be trying to move, and the pain would get to a point that I could no longer manage it, and I would black out. And we called him the wingman. My wingman would catch me. I'd come back to, and he would do a 10-second countdown and then say, "Here we go." And we would repeat that until I got to I'm going to get emotional, but until I got to the finish line that night. And again, it's just a testament to how powerful the mind is. Now, I was angry because I wanted to showcase how strong our team was mentally and physically, and I wanted to make the 100 look easy. I believed we could do that. And I was angry that I couldn't run and that I was forced to walk. And it turned out to be the biggest blessing of the entire campaign.
Why?
My pain and discomfort forced me to walk. And every single day, we had people from around the country fly in, and locals to support us. And without fail, they said, I'm so grateful you're walking, because I wouldn't have been able to join you if you weren't walking. And I was hard on myself, because I was like, look, I'm an athlete. I want to destroy this. And as I got deeper into it, I was like, I'm so grateful for this injury. I'm so grateful I'm walking, and my pain has turned into a blessing that other people can join and have an experience. And every single day, somebody did their first 10K with me, or their first marathon, or their first full distance, or their first 100-mile bike ride. And every single day, I got to experience somebody else's first.
Wow.
And it was humbling, and it was, humbling.
Wow. I mean, by the end of this, you guys, a couple hundred people riding the cyclists with them. And I actually, for you, am grateful that it didn't look easy, because I think you connected, at least with me, watching you struggle. I'm on Instagram every night watching these videos when it was happening. And like, there were literally times for me watching you, like I'm in tears, like not wondering the next day. But it's one of the most, I don't even like to say one of the most, because when I say that, then I have to think of something that I think is more. It's just insanely inspiring. And I can't think of something mentally or physically I've ever seen close to this, because of the adversity, because of all the people that got caught up in it with you. Also, though, there's another element of this that, this idea of adapting, man, I'm just so glad that you said that for everybody's sake. But I'm curious, of all of them, the time you did the 50 or this time, was there a moment where you're like, I'm out, I'm going to tap, like you're literally blacking out, right? So that's insane to me. But was there a time when you just consciously went, I'm in too much pain, I'm in too much, because guys, these are icy roads, snowy sometimes. You imagine shin issues on a snowy ice. Oh my gosh. Like, was there a point, or are there lots of points where you're like, I'm out? Was there one particular, bro, where you're like, no, like this time I'm really out?
So, my team is world class. And there's the core four of us. It's my wife, Sonny, Joe, and then the two wingmen, Casey and Aaron. And they were the four of us, thick and thin, through the 50, and then I brought those boys back on for the 100, and they played massive roles. And Sonny is obviously the head of this entire thing. And we just know from experience that it's okay to feel. It's not okay to quit. It's okay to problem solve. It's not okay to quit. And it's okay to process. And I think that's what a lot of people don't do, especially men, is they don't allow themselves to feel and process before they hunker down and keep going. At no point in time was ever any of us saying, we're quitting, we got to be talked back into it. But every single one of us had moments where we just needed to cry, to feel, be supported, to where we said, okay, I've had my 2 minutes. I'm not going to dwell on it. We're gonna quickly turn this around, and we're gonna get back to work. And that's the reason the four of us are so strong together, because all four of us have that mindset. And I will tell you this: the closest that I ever came to even considering it was somewhere between 15 and 20, where we were at the peak of that pain, where I had a couple of days where I was blacking out. I don't remember portions of it. And I remember standing in the shower, and I kind of just shrugged my shoulders at Sonny, and I said, I don't know how many more days I can manage the pain at that level. Because when you've got 85 more days to go, it's so daunting. And when you're broken, it's hard to conceptualize what it's like. And I'll never forget what she said. She said, you're done today, and you don't have to do anything else. And all you have to do is now trust in the team. Get out of the shower, go lay on the table, and let them take care of you. and then we will face whatever comes tomorrow together.
Gosh, it's huge.
And I think that's what a lot of people don't do is you've got this today's mentality of the people that do decide to show up, that it's like, I got to go in all the time. I got to go all in all the time. I got to hurt more than he does. And they don't take 2 seconds to reset mentally. And I can't tell you how important that was. And the valuable lesson that I learned was, you've done enough today to take 2 seconds and reset. And as soon as I got into that rhythm, knowing, and again, it takes putting the right team together, and then it takes letting go and trusting the team that you have put together to do their job, to do their part. And that's hard too, as a man, to let go of like control of every piece of that puzzle, and to go, I surrender and I trust you to do your part. And it's hard to find good people nowadays that are willing to do their part.
Yeah.
And I have that team. And so when Sonny said, you've done enough today.
Beautiful.
And I think that's so important, because we go through life and I think we're so hard on ourselves. We see ourselves differently. And how many times in our lives, on our journeys, do we take a minute and say, you're enough. Right. You've done enough. And I think it's so important, especially as men, to be vulnerable and just say, I've done enough today. I'm going to take on tomorrow when tomorrow comes.
I'm very surprised to hear you say it, yet it resonates with me as complete truth. Just one of the biggest badass athletes of all time going, hey man, needed to cry, needed to let it go, needed to give myself some credit. I'm enough. Like, I even sometimes, because I'm kind of like you, we're very similar, and that's why I think I'm growing to be so fond of you, is that we both have pretty masculine sides to us, but we also, whatever you want to call it, there's also sort of you can call it a feminine side. I guess what people call feminine. If you show feelings, you're feminine, so to speak, right? I don't have any problem saying that. And sometimes people will say to me, oh, I love when you don't tell people they're enough when they're not enough. And I'm like, no, they are enough, right? And if they don't believe they're enough, they're not going to get their A effort. How much of it is about being present, though? I would think when you have 100 days, and I'm just spitballing here because you're the one who did it, but kind of down your road, the other thing that happens when we're down or even when we're winning, we go, oh, I'm going to have to do this 11 more times. I'm going to have to make phone calls 800 more days on my business career. I'm going to have to find 9,000 more clients. Like, they start projecting further down the road and stacking this impossibility when most things are in bite-sized chunks in life. I didn't get to wherever I am. I certainly didn't end up, oceanfront or wherever it is, like, because I projected forward. If you'd have told me everything I had to do to get here, I probably would not have started. But if you know what I got to do today, I'll do it today. Right? How much of it? I got to think with 100 of these. It's like, it might not even be the day. It might just be the next step. I don't know. What is it? How do you do that?
Yeah, for sure. You've got to break it down into really small, manageable chunks, or you get overwhelmed. And I actually call it catastrophism. And what that is looking into the future in an event or situation that hasn't happened yet, and then continually feeding it and giving it energy until it blows out of proportion and control, and it engulfs you, consumes you, and completely breaks you down and sidelines you. Yeah. And that's what happens to all of us. Like, guys, business or whatever it is, your to-do list is never going to end. And so, like, stop trying to, like, worry about the pieces of the puzzle that you don't know. And that's another great point, is like, you're not going to know everything when you start, and so stop worrying about it, but just, you got to start executing. And it was interesting. I had an experience. It was deep into the campaign. Well, two experiences. There was somebody, we ran on this asphalt trail by my house, and early on, somebody, I still don't know who it is, they wrote the words Conquer 100 on the trail with spray paint, and then every single day when I would complete it, they would come out and put a hash mark. I was so pissed at this person 8 days in, because every single time I would go by it, and it was a reminder that I had 92 more to go. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, stop doing whatever you're doing. I cannot compartmentalize and figure out how to do 82 more of these, because I'm trying to be present. Stop bringing to my attention that this is happening. Now, I was grateful when there was 90 something hash marks, and I'm like, yeah, there's 90. That each one of those represents something. Right. And then they threw this party at 51 when we broke officially broke the world record, and then we broke it every single day. But they were like, dude, you're halfway there. And I'm like, F you. Don't tell me I'm halfway there, because that means to me I still have halfway to go. Don't bring that to my consciousness. And it got to the point where I had to break things down into manageable, smaller numbers, to where I didn't have 14 to go. I had 9 to go till 5 to go.
Yes.
And I could manage those smaller compartments. And it was interesting. I was so hyper focused on the moment, what we were doing. And a guy said to me, I was on 91, and he said, dude, you're so close, you have 9 more to go. And I looked at him and I said, no, I have 3. And he goes, no, you have 9. And I looked at him and I said, you're a moron. I have 3 miles to go today.
There you go.
And I was so focused on where I was right there in that moment. He was talking about full distance, days to go. And I'm not even like, my mind wasn't even, I could not comprehend what he was saying. And I'm like, you've been with me the whole marathon. How can you not know we only have 3 to go? Why do you think we have 9? He was talking about days, and I was so present right there on the moment that I could not comprehend what he was saying, because I only had 3 miles to go to where I was enough that day.
Gosh, bro,
and so you've got to be on any journey that you on, whether it's lists or business or marriage or whatever. Be there right now. I've got 5 kids, and people are always like, "Hey, how do you do family balance and do what you do?" And I'm like, it's not about 30%, 30%, 30%. My daughters, they're teenage girls. They don't want 30% of my time. Are you freaking kidding me? They want me to be all there for 4 minutes. Like that's it. Right. But when I'm there in those 4 minutes, yes, I better be there with them for those 4 minutes. And so
I think, James, you've hit on something, brother, because I'm going to tell you, the peak performers that I coach, outside too, they have an ability to shrink time frames. And so they have a long-term plan, like you set out, conquer 100. That's the long-term vision. Most people can get that done. They go, I want a beach house. I want a dream relationship. I want 8% body fat. The big thing, most people can get there. It's the day-to-day executing at a super high level in a hyper-focused, intentional state that most people don't have. And it's because they're projecting into the future. And to some extent, that projection into the future is a cop-out distracting from your lack of execution right now. And the best pitchers aren't trying to throw a no-hitter. They're trying to execute this slider low and away. The best, you know this from golf. The best golfer isn't thinking about the 16th hole on hole 3. They're thinking about this 9-iron to 146, 5 feet left of the hole in that shot.
I tell people all the time, you have to have a short-term memory. You have to have short-term memory, and you have to have the vision for the long-term goal. But and I'm totally going to botch the saying. I don't even know who said it, but like, focus and intent right now, today, will take care of the future and the long-term goal. You don't even have to worry about it if you're executing